Oh, good morning. So we're in the yard. We've got 10 of us here today. Hello. Now we're gonna have some hectic, fast, speedy stuff going on today, I reckon, because we've got some cool herders. Buzz is here, and when Buzz and Sydney get together, it's all go. The afterburners are on. And we've got a bunch of really cool personalities floating around in the yard. And we've got little Hazel as well. Little Hazel, she's just coming out of her heat cycle now. And so we're giving her a little bit of rest between her and one of her lover boys. We've got two boys that are very interested in what's going on with the little Hazel. So we're just kind of cycling those through to keep tensions down. But I wanted to introduce you to the yard itself. So I'm just going to flip this camera around, and then I'm going to show you what this yard looks like. Yeah, I'll get to you in a second. And I'm also going to show you the obstacle course that we're going to be doing in here for the next little while. So here's the main yard. I'll take you over. Show you what some of these guys are up to. They're always having a good time. Right, so I call this one levels. We'll start up on the table. Hey, buddy. There are two avenues to start. We can go up the ladder, across the gap. Then we have the sway bridge. That's one side. The other side is coming up here past this bridge onto the yellow platform. Then we go across the horizontal ladder. Come on, bub, show it off. Good girl. Then we'll go through the hoop. From the hoop up onto the first level. So once we have them on top, we'll move across. And from here then, we have some manual handling. So the idea here is that we're going to carry the students down, and that'll be the end. Right, let's walk through Coda's levels course. She's pretty good on the horizontal ladder. There's not really much of a difficulty for her. But she's not really a free thinker per se. So this particular obstacle, she could go over, around, or under. It doesn't really matter to me. And the sway bridge in itself is also something that she's not so great at. She'll tend to, normally she would tend to kind of peek out a little bit about it and be a bit concerned. Everything else she's pretty happy with. She's pretty good. She doesn't really need a lure. She doesn't even really need a target anymore. She can just be told what to do. But just pay attention to this here. This is really critical. A lot of dogs these days don't get picked up enough, right? So it puts them in a vulnerable position, and it is important for us to be able to handle our dogs in such a way that you can, for example, put them up onto the grooming table. You can put them up onto the vet's examination table. Sailor's up next, and Sailor is a Kelpie, so that means she's a working breed, and everything must happen at speed for a Kelpie. That means that concentration or thought at slow speeds can actually be really, really difficult and highly demanding. So that's where the lure really comes into its own, I feel, because now it gets rid of a lot of errors and it allows a Kelpie to just gun for the lure. So we're going to come across here the horizontal ladder. I'm not going to do the sway bridge with her. I like to start with the horizontal ladder because it is a stable platform. I'm not worried if she misses a beat. It's kind of the point of her is to learn where to place her feet and to slow herself down. Kelpies want to run through every problem the same way a Cocker Spaniel wants to sniff through every problem. So she's going to jump through here, not a problem. And you can actually capitalize a great deal on a Kelpie's desire for speed. So she's quite scared of the jumps. She's a little bit nervous about the heights, but because she's a Kelpie and she wants to do everything fast, we can capitalize on that. We can get rid of the room for error by keeping things at a slow to moderate speed rather than a high speed. So we're still putting the brakes on. We're just going to shortcut her issue here. She is quite tentative about getting up here. She's never been up here before. But once she's up, she realizes, hey, I just keep doing the things that I've done before. And it ends in something good for her. So we've still got a relatively high rate of reinforcement. We're giving her plenty of treats for each particular component of the exercise. The manual handling, I'm slowing down because I know that she's going to be quite wriggly. And I don't want her to freak out. That's going to attract the other dogs to jump up, and that's going to reinforce that nervous disposition. Everyone's favourite Aussie Shepherd, Silly Sid, is up next. He's quite a stout fellow, and again, he's a herding breed. That makes him a working line dog. But this guy is a play-by-braille type personality. He doesn't use a lot of fine motor skills. He's very much into his gross motor skills. So the sway bridge is going to be difficult for him because it requires a lot of fine motor control. He's quite happy to test things out, but unusually, because Sailor is standing in the way, he's actually deferring to her. That makes him slow down, and I'm pretty stoked with that. I'll capitalise on that. I've just got to get Sailor out of the way. And obviously because she was up before, she still wants to gun into it. Nice jump through the hoop. Little spin. Low level is too easy. But you can see how he wants to put speed on things and just graduate to the next point in a straight line. He hasn't figured out that we've got turns yet. And notice the massive decrease in speed on that higher level. So that's something that we're going to work on so that he can get a little bit faster on the top level. The carrying, surprisingly, was actually pretty easy. We've got some air legs going on, and that'll slow down over time as well. But all in all, for his first repetition, I'm pretty stoked with what he managed to do. We'll move on to Buzzy Bee. Now, he is socially actually really sensitive. It took me a little while to figure out because when he's at liberty, he's a gun, he's rolling with everyone, he's having a great time. But as soon as we actually start to do something in a more formal setting, he takes a massive back seat. So what you can see me really concentrate and I've got to deal with my own frustrations because I know he can do it and I want it for him so bad. But he's so nervous and so shy that he can't do the castle. And all right, okay, not a problem. We gave it a good shot. But because all of the other students are flocking around me, he then takes a back seat. So I've got to use my movement to clear a path for him to get up on the sway bridge. And once he's up there, I know he's going to rock the sway bridge. And it's too easy for him. He'll get up on this thing just for spits and giggles and have a good time on it. But the important aspect for me is that we do it together as a team. And that's really critical. Now, I expected him to do a little bit better here. He really didn't enjoy doing the first level at all. So we're going to have to come back and we're going to have to try and get him on to that first station and then do the next level. Because he's stopping himself mentally before he's actually able to reach his maximum capacity. So I want to be able to raise his ceiling closer to the roof so that in general lifestyle, he doesn't feel so pessimistic in certain situations. So that instead of him sitting down and waiting for everybody to leave, that he's quite happy to go, well, it's my turn for the party and I'm happy to, to jump on board. There we go, a little bit of patience pays off. And you've got to go slow in these situations. You really can't speed it up more than they are able to go. Remember, we are raising the roof, so we're raising the ceiling to get to the roof. So it took 2 repetitions, a lot of patience in between to get him from point A to point B. Totally cool. Let's see what happens next. There is no way he's going to be able to get up on that tyre. That's too much for him. Again, I'm going to get rid of the struggle because I believe that he can do this next section. Because it's the same as the previous level. Sweet. Great job, Buzz. Notice his tail. It's more or less horizontal and then it kind of dips off towards the end. There's not a huge amount of dopamine. There's not a huge amount of feel good. This is really about him connecting the dots intellectually before he's able to channel some enthusiasm into what he's doing. That's going to come later on. And there we go. The tail is high. The tail is flagging. Great stuff. All right, so let's get everyone's favorite berserker rage boy, Scooby-Choo. Let's get him through this. He's going to struggle a bit with the castle. He did pretty good with the table to start things off. He's super brave. He punches way above his weight. I mean, he is an absolute packet of dynamite in a really small body. We got him up to the first level of the ladders, or the steps, sorry, on the castle. But getting up to the first platform proved to be a little bit difficult for him. Again, a lot of dogs show different parts of their personality through these sort of formal sections. So again, he's deferring to the social pressure being put on by the rest of the class. And that's kind of the important thing about group environment situations like this. He's letting himself get lured through. We can lure him through the jump. We're going to get him to jump through the higher standing hoop later on. Still relying on the lure. Totally cool. I'm really stoked with this, that he just jumped straight on there. I reckon he can actually clear that without a worry. These sorts of tasks, I guess because of his smaller frame, and that means that for a guy like him, he's got a much more refined central nervous system as far as body awareness goes, and he can smash those heights and stuff out quite easy compared to the larger, lankier dogs. There are Cocker Spaniels, Muddy Buddy representing. He goes straight up the steps on the castle. He's trying to think of, well, usually you have me place my paws on the rafter here. Is that what you want? He doesn't want to get down to jump up, so we get him to go around one of the side doors. Totally cool. Whichever way you want. Key is to be patient. This is supposed to be fun. This isn't supposed to be a grind. This is what a lot of people do with obedience, is we get so frustrated, we kind of force the whole issue instead of keeping in mind that this is supposed to be a good time. The jump is no problem for him. The spin is no problem for him. Similar to a Kelpie, this guy just needs to slow down. A lot of this sort of stuff, he can do it already, and he's happy to do it. For him, it's going to be really about minimizing my inputs so that he can do the whole thing in one unbroken chain. Great work, buddy. One of the most critical things with big puppies is to keep in mind that even though they're big, they're actually still very young. Now, those big puppies grow up very, very quickly. Their bodies just explode in height, weight, and length. And that means that their brain tends to lag. They tend to go through that real goofy stage, and that's kind of where we're at with Winnie. She's all legs and she's all spine. And we're teaching her to coordinate those in a far more precise way than she currently does. Now, one of the things with Winnie is that I picked up even on her first day, is she is socially quite competitive. Now, she's also quite socially savvy. That means that she will integrate, she will have a conversation. She's not a tyrant, she's not a dictator, she's not a bully. She's quite apt to hold a conversation, but her conversations are geared towards establishing her place in the social hierarchy of things quite high up. So she's one of the few puppies that will continue to have a conversation with Codes. Codes is the number one female. She's at the top, and Winnie is gunning for her position. And Code is 9 years old, right? So you can see her putting her head up through the ladder because she's going to push for the food that should be available to Winnie. So they're having a two-way conversation. There's no accident as to what is happening here. But Winnie, she's a Roddy, and I want her to be more Winnie for longer than she does spending time being a Roddy. We can have games and all that sort of stuff. We can do rough play, and we can do all of those combative expressions that allow her to be a Rottweiler. No problems. We can't squash the breeding, and we shouldn't. That's not why we get a Roddy. But I want her to be Winnie for longer. What does that mean? I want her to be able to think for longer. I don't want her to be reactive. I want her to be proactive. So here, I don't want her to succumb to her fears. And she freezes a little bit on the ladder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab her paws and I'm going to show her where to put them. You can read from her body. She knows what to do. She simply doesn't have the fortitude to be able to do it. She needs support. Now, if she were to balk at the support, that would show me that this is simply too much and I need to give her a good time on here without demanding any work. But she responds to the support in such a way that allows us to push through to the next bit. The more wins and the more successes, the more confident Winnie is within herself. And that means that she doesn't seek confidence in being a Roddy. Ergo, she becomes more tolerant of her environment. And as she starts to go through that second fear period of sensitivity, she's going to be able to cope and tolerate with more adversity than she otherwise would. Really, really important. So here we go with the manipulation. Now this isn't a forceful thing, it's just like any other coaching, we're showing her where to put her feet. That is then reinforcing. Put your feet here. That is in stark competition with, I don't think I can, I don't think I can, I don't think I can. And again, patience is super key. It can quite easily occur that you yourself become very frustrated when doing these sorts of things. But if you have a goal in mind, you can break that goal down into increasingly smaller steps to suit the student in front of you. Some students will breeze through it, some students won't. And they just need a little bit more support. But because you have an end goal in mind, you know which way to go. So she has reached the ceiling, we can't raise it to the roof. So I'm going to eliminate the struggle, put her front paws on the end plate, her rear paws on the last step. What's that going to make her do? Bang, she's done it. She automatically walks off the edge. Now she's just looking for, well, how do you want me to finish this, Stu? What do we need to do? Yay. Tentative, yes. Willing to take the food, yes. We're not coercing her with the food. We are placing it there for her to take. We are not shoveling it into her throat. And I'm really happy with what she was able to do. That took a lot of mental calories to be able to get to where she is now. Now I was quite surprised at this. I expected her to be a lot more confident because she's so confident in so many other ways. I expected her to be able to breeze the low level. But it turned out to be extraordinarily hard for her, and this is, from memory, this is going to be the last thing that we do together. See how slow she is? She's really stretching out. She's trying to anchor those back feet down. Like, read that in your dogs when you're training them. If they're anchoring those back feet down, they're not ready for the next level, whatever it is that you're doing. That tail's going, a little bit of balance, a lot of excitement, quite erratic. That's the sort of tail wag that I want to have. Long sweeps from left to right. That's what I'm looking for in a learning dog. So lots of reinforcement. She needed every step of the way to be reinforced. That's totally cool. We're not bribing, we're teaching. Stoked. She did a fantastic job. That was super scary for her. Ready? Here comes the doper Ned. He really is a cool dude. He's the first guy to go from the top of the ladder and just jump underneath the rafter straight over onto the plate. I was really, really super stoked with that. The jump is going to be easy for him. The spin, beautiful. You can see that there's a lot of work been done with this guy before I've come along. I'm not taking all of the credit. His mum's done a fantastic job with him. And everything is a breeze for him. Now, we're not doing this for his confidence. He's got plenty of that in a little body. But what I want from him is for us to be able to work as a team. And eventually, again, similar to Muddy Buddy, our goal is to wean my support out of this so that we have a starting position, an end position, and I can just guide him through with verbal command. But for this last section, we're going to do a more of a close-up look. So this is little Berry. She's super young. She's a Cocker Spaniel, and she is an absolute gun. She's going to be a great little girl. So we're teaching her to get onto things, steps, different surfaces, slippery. The idea being that she's able to do as many things as independently as possible. Obviously, we're going to use a lure because it's much easier and faster for her to have a smaller target to aim for. Beautiful. Notice what I did there. We're getting her through. We got her through once. Say yes, that's her tam. And then I'm going to get her to jump through again just for spits and giggles. So we're making the hoop part of the reinforcement event. Nice lure across the low level. I'm going to lift her up, and you can see how I'm framing her now so that if she were to take a bit of a stumble, I can catch her.
Can we do spinny spins? Whoa.
Super cool. Good. Lifting her up, she's going to be a little bit wriggly, get those air legs cranking. Lift her up, plonk her down, more reinforcement. She's a puppy. This is super important for her to have manual handling. Laser Hazel, you can see why she's got that name, right? Everything happens fast. Just check this out. She's gone straight to the midpoint. I want her to be at the starting point. So my job here is to slow her down. I know she can execute. I know she's got great enthusiasm, but I want her to execute in a specific fashion. I know that she can do this. We've played around with these things, but it's about chaining one thing after the next. But right now, this is what I'm introducing to her. The manual handling. This is my goal. My apologies for not getting this stuff earlier on. We had a slight technical issue. Yes. All right, so that was the obstacle course. So most of the dogs, as you can see, they're doing pretty good. Some of the puppies, especially Winnie, you can see she's pretty big, but because she's so young, she's not so good with heights, and that's something that we'll need to work on. So the horizontal ladder was way too much for her. She needed a lot of manipulation, and she could kind of get it. You could see that she's thinking about it in the right way, and that she's able to put one step in front of the other. She knows what to do. The difficulty for her is being brave enough to actually do it, and that's something that we've got to help her through. We've got to develop her through that. So there's a lot of pros to doing this sort of work. Apart from the self-confidence aspect, the outcome of that is reduction in reactivity, reduction in depression, reduction in anxiety, and all of those other sorts of problematic sort of expressions that we really want to avoid. But it also develops our puppies and as well as our adult students physically. Like, you're never too old really to get better physically or mentally, all things being equal. So by doing these exercises, by going over the sway bridge, it sways, it vibrates, it does all sorts of weird things that you don't get on a usual surface. It means the dogs have to have better proprioception, right? So they're getting better balance, they're firing that central nervous system in a way that they just can't do that on a walk. And that's the beauty about coming to a dog school, is that you can now have your student enrolled in a program that is going to develop them physically as well as mentally. It's like a school. You don't keep your kids at home, you send them away to a school so that they learn from other people. They learn they can do things that you can't do at home. And that's kind of the point of what we've got at the Brain Room. All right, so thanks for hanging out with us today. It was a pretty sunshiny day. We had a great time. I hope you had a great time. Remember, loose leads, have loads of fun with your dogs.